Everyone wants to leave a legacy of positivity in the world around them. Whether you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a nonprofit executive director, or even a soon-to-be entrepreneur, one fact is always true. The easiest and most effective way to catalyze change in the world around you is through commerce and through business. But how do you do it? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Changemakers Collective, a place where people can come and get educated and encouraged and empowered to be the impact agent in the world around them. Brought to you by Silverback Ventures, Steff Thomas and Scott Woods have over 50 years combined experience helping companies and owners amplify the voice and multiply the impact of purpose-driven businesses. Join us each week as we discuss what it means to live a life of purpose on purpose.
Welcome back to the Changemakers Collective. I'm Scott.
I'm Steff.
We're not going to say that anymore.
Yes, we are.
You know who we are.
We're going to say it.
Okay, we're going to say it, but you don't need to know that anymore.
I'm going to say you're a hope dealer.
I am a hope dealer. Yes. I want to talk about scaling your business and sitting in the seat and going, there's no way we can scale our business with our team right now because we're constantly backtracking to fix. We constantly have an issue with the more we do, the more we have to fix, the more we have to change processes around because our delivery of our product and service is inefficient. That is not something you typically will just notice.
But you can't gloss over it.
You can't gloss over it, but it's not something that you sit down and look at your P&L or have a meeting with your team and go, yeah, we're inefficient.
When we were talking about this, you were kind of poking the bear a little bit and saying how I would be excited about this.
Yes.
Because I'm all about processes.
You are all about the process. That's true.
However, having a process that you don't revisit is the number one way to cause inefficiencies.
Well, I think let's take a step back. Let's talk about what efficient delivery is, right? So you get a call, customer says, I want XYZ, goes into your system, order system, you spit out XYZ, they pay you, you pay the bills, everybody's happy. Inefficient is you get a call, you write it down on a piece of paper, it goes in a drawer somewhere, you forget about it. I've worked with some professional service companies where I've gone in and they've asked my help for helping them scale their business. And they walk in and there's a stack 3 inches tall on their desk. And I'm like, well, what is that? And that's invoices we haven't billed yet. Mm-hmm. That's an inefficient use of how to run your business.
I've got another one.
Go for it.
When you have a business and you have one person that's responsible for one or many things, and they are the only person that knows how to do that thing, whether it's paying the bill, whether it's unlocking the door, whether it's ordering your widget.
Hey, that reminds me of another episode where we said, don't be the bottleneck. Don't be the bottleneck.
Right.
Don't be the bottleneck. But you're 100% true. So the question is, whose fault is that? Whose fault ultimately is inefficiency in your business and not enabling you to scale?
I think it starts with the owner or the leader. Because if you don't create a culture of revision, of cross-training, of process implementation, all of those things will eventually cause you just can't scale. You can't scale your business.
No, and I think that's where we get called in a lot to fix those problems.
Right.
And where it typically starts is somebody has an idea and says, I'm going to do this thing. And they get a little ways down the road and the thing has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And they're still trying to run their business like they did when it was half the size.
Okay, let's stop right there. So let's talk about that. Because, when we talk to clients, I say this all the time. So you start a business and you're bootstrapping it.
Mm-hmm.
So your mother.
And that's both cash and people.
But cash and people. Your mother, who knows how to balance a checkbook, becomes your
bookkeeper.
Mm-hmm. You may or may not use QuickBooks because you don't really understand it. Your social media platform is your sister, And now you've scaled your business and you need to fire your mother and your sister.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to hire people like
that are professionals.
Right. But it's hard to bring in the professional when you have no processes in place.
Because the first thing a professional is going to say is, what is the process to do this? How do you systematize everything you're doing? I am a firm believer and a firm proponent of the easy button.
Mm-hmm.
The more, and this goes back to both of our works in the nonprofit world, the only way to make more money is to do more with less.
Right.
And the only way to do more with less is to have the most efficient, cost-effective system in place to run your operations that way you can add more into the top side, more orders, more customers, more everything, and have it go through a system so that you don't have to add people in order to do the next thing.
But Scott, often when I talk to people, that's scary, right? Because
Of
first
course
of
it is.
all, most businesses are running at a speed of 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
And to step back and to get, a lot of times we'll be with a client and I'll say, okay, well, what's the system in that? Well, so-and-so does that. They know how to do it. There's a system. They do it the same way. Well, if it's in someone's head and not on paper, that's a problem because life happens, right? But you have to make the environment in such a way that someone can step back so you create a system, right? Okay, so every Monday from 9 to 11, we are going to whiteboard the system of answering the phone. And
you do it one time, revisit it every so often.
Yeah.
But simple things, right? Like the invoice thing I was talking about. Every client that we have, especially in the small business and nonprofit space, simple things will make a huge difference. Take your bill paying and depositing checks. We say all the time, do that one day a week.
Yep.
You have a inbox on your desk. You accumulate all the bills. Once a week, you enter them in, you pay the ones that are due, and you put the other ones in a to be paid file. Okay. And you don't look at them again until the next time you do the bills.
So here's what happens. You have an eager beaver that as soon as the bill comes in, they want to cut the check right then. Well, it's not due till next month. So you don't have to do that. But when you have a system of every Tuesday I'm paying the bills, well, you're never going to miss something. No. Because you're looking at them every week. It's when you look at them once a month that you miss stuff.
Yeah. I do that in our household.
I do it too.
I don't even open the mail except for every Sunday afternoon, Monday morning. I open up the mail. I document all the bills that are repaid. I pay the ones that are due, and I put the other ones in the to be paid file and move on. Mm-hmm. That helps me not to utilize my brain power on something that only needs to be once a week.
Right.
It's the same within your business. You have to be able to do more with less. The only way to prevent inefficiency from creeping into your business is to block your time, systematize everything you possibly can. And I would venture a guess that most businesses have more opportunity for process-driven operations than they think.
So I am the queen of blocking time.
Mm-hmm. You are very good at that.
It is.
Because I've called you when it was not my time. Mm-hmm. And you were like, look, I don't want to talk to you right now.
Well, this just happened yesterday. Someone said, hey, we have different clients, which means I have different emails for different clients. And when I block my time, they said, I sent you an email to such and such. And I said, well, that's not the area that I was in. I protect those areas. So you have to have a deep focus in specific times and areas. So blocking your time, if that's not a practice, that's one that it makes you much
That's
more.
A personal efficiency thing that will transform your personal life and your work life in dramatic ways.
But if your team sees that you're doing it, they will start to do it as well. Just makes it efficient. The other thing that you were talking about is paying attention to what you're doing, right? Revisit things. So we talk about SWOT analysis. We talk about, just reviewing, but getting into a rhythm. And there's books about, getting into a business rhythm where you were checking what's working, what's broken, what do we need to enhance, what do we need to not do anymore. But having a quarterly thought process around that makes you more efficient.
Yeah, I think people have abandoned to some degree because of the nimbleness and the speed at which businesses are working now. They've abandoned some of those strategic planning sessions, right? So they think, okay, well, strategic planning is something we do once a year, and then we create a budget, and then we never look at it again until the next year. And we are firm believers that, yes, most companies would benefit from a standard stock budget. However, you need, and that's budget just not just financial, that's budget of time and people and process. You need to have a nimble forecast that says, hey, what's happening in the next 90 days? If that client that we were relying on decides to quit, how does that change how we're going to market? Having an efficient system and an efficient and clear boundaries of what roles people have within the organization will help help the reaction to a dramatic change like that have a less impact. Historically, the conversation has been, okay, if you have no money coming in and all your clients quit, how are you going to cut costs? Most businesses can easily point to, well, we do this, we get rid of this, we'd stop this, easy. The bigger indicator of how your process and system and business is set up is if your sales doubled tomorrow, where would your company break down?
Right.
Because what that points to is, hey, we don't have the right people, or we don't have the right process, or we don't have enough people.
Well, you find the bottlenecks, you find the inefficiencies, you find the incompetence.
And it's not just sales. If you're in a customer service business and your volume of phone calls doubled overnight, where is that going to break down?
That's across the board, right? I mean, Silverback Ventures. If 60 people called us tomorrow, could we manage it? And if we're not having conversations around what that looks like, then shame on us as leaders.
And again, that goes back to the original question: is whose fault is it?
Yeah.
That's why you're the leader. Now, does that mean you have to be the bottleneck of every decision about efficiency?
Absolutely
of course not. You have to empower people and give them the authority to not only make decisions, but to do the research to understand where the process is breaking down.
I'm going to throw a curveball. Ready?
Go for it.
You don't have to be at every meeting, and everybody doesn't have to meet 100 times a week.
Oh, boy.
So death by meeting is a real thing. It's
inefficient. Death by meeting is a real thing. Right. That's true.
There's a book called No Fail Meeting. It's small. For those that are watching, it's this big.
It's an efficient read.
Short, thin, perfect. But it basically says, ask yourself this question. Do you have to be a part of the meeting? Do you have to meet? Can it be addressed from an email? So if you do not have to be a part of the meeting and there has to be a meeting, who needs to meet? And what is the outcome? And how long is it going to be? So start meetings on time, finish meetings on time.
Yes.
Don't derail the meetings by side talk. A lot of times people, when we go into a client's office and we say, okay, you need to have, a SWOT analysis with your team. The first thing they say is, there's going to be an hour of complaining. Okay, well, if people need to complain, they need to complain, but you need to facilitate that, right?
Yeah, that's a symptom. That's a symptom that we need to address. And I think that's where the meetings, I was just reading an article where an IT company, huge Fortune 500 company, the leader came back from a trip and said, okay, for the next 90 days, we're not having any meetings at all.
Blocked it out. Zero. On the calendars.
You could not add a meeting back onto the calendar. And it forced people to understand, one, it forced people to make and use the gray matter between their ears and actually think about what they needed to do.
Right. if you can do it yourself, you don't need to call a meeting for it.
Now, there is a flip side to that coin to make sure that you have a good flow of communication so that people know where you're going and know why you're going there. A lot of inefficiencies stem from a lack of clarity around the destination you're trying to get to. So being able to clarify how my role and how your role and how Kristen's role all add to getting us closer to our ultimate goal. If there's not clarity around how that works, you're constantly going to have inefficiency.
So we hear that all the time, right? The leadership thinks that they have a clear vision. The group that supports the leadership thinks that they are supporting the vision and they are apples and oranges.
Yep. It's like a game of telephone.
Right. Then they trickle down and all of the people that's working to make sure that the vision happens are working on something totally different. So then you find people working in silos, inefficient. You find people doing great work in their area, but it has nothing to do with where the company is going, inefficient. You have meetings about things that aren't related to the vision. So clarity. When you see that people are not supporting the vision, that's a time to have a meeting.
Oh, 100% yes. 100% yes. And if you're the leader and you are not checking up on whether or not your staff and your leadership support team understands where you're going, you are constantly going to have an inefficient system globally, not just individually per an organization. You know, there's a whole school of thought around lean manufacturing.
Yes. Best practices.
And the whole Kaizen process is all about efficiency. If you take that mindset and put it into interpersonal processes and internal back office processes, which we do all the time, because it's incredibly frustrating to come into an inefficient administrative process. Because again, for those of us in administration, that's the first place the organization is going to look to cut people.
Absolutely.
You have to make the most of what you have, where you are, and what tools you have.
You know, years ago when lean management and best practices came out, I mean, that was probably 15 years ago, right? That was a forward thinking. And they did this video of a man making a sandwich. That was their thing. And the man was going to the refrigerator and bringing out the mayonnaise, going to the refrigerator and bringing out the meat, going to the refrigerator. And then he had to go to the cabinet and bring out the plate. And then he went to the thing and he brought out the knife to spread the mayonnaise. It was frustrating to watch. You know, you bring everything out at one time, you line it up, you make the sandwich, and you go on. 5 minutes tops, you're eating versus the 15. But I say that to say we see that happen in an organization all the time. You see duplicate people doing the same jobs and not telling each other that they are doing the same jobs.
Yes.
You see people running around to get things together when really, if you just pay attention and you put it all in the workspace.
Well, and the funny thing about that is you will have companies really work hard to make sure their manufacturing process and their assembly line is as streamlined and as few touches and as few steps as humanly possible. And then the minute they come inside the office or inside the sales team or inside any administrative function, it all falls apart.
Yeah. It's
Take
inefficient.
the time to systematize everything within your organization, from the manufacturing process, if that's what you're in, to everything from a back office standpoint. I can guarantee you will have less stress. You will have more clarity around what your people are doing every day. The people that are actually doing the work are going to have time to think and have clarity around how their process is adding to or getting you closer to the goal. It just makes the whole system so much more comfortable.
Not only does it make the system better, but then you can see the holes. Who do we need to hire?
Yes. Yes.
Can someone go on vacation?
Then you have the conversation about what would happen if you doubled in size.
Right.
Because now you have a system that is scalable. And if you had to double in size, okay, All I got to do is add another CSR over here.
Right.
And the process is the same. Now that person, instead of one person taking 500 calls, now we have 2 people taking 1,000 calls.
Right.
Or we have 5 people taking 25,000 calls. It's easy. It's easy. It's plug and play. That also allows your people to have time to think and be able to collaborate and innovate so that you can do some fun stuff. You're spending a lot of time at work. Why not make it as efficient as possible so that you can use your God-given gifts and talents to change the world? We're here to solve a problem. Let's get after it already.
Right. But you got to make time for it.
Yes.
If you don't take
if you're the leader and you're not
out.
evaluating whether or not you have an efficient process from the phone call coming in to the delivery of the product or service on the backside, you're doing yourself, your organization, and your customer a disservice. So if you're living purposefully, part of living purposefully is having an efficient process to do as much. We're in a business that we're talking about impacting the world for good. You cannot impact as many people if it is inefficient from the delivery of that product and service to your constituents.
So when living a life of purpose on purpose, be purposeful.
Be purposeful. Yes, very well said. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Changemakers Collective. If you've enjoyed this episode, please help us grow our community by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or rating us on Spotify.
You can also find our podcast on YouTube, so you can come and leave us a comment over there as well. If you want support growing your business and scaling your vision, visit us at silverbackventures.org or connect with us on LinkedIn.
Thanks again, and we'll see you on our next episode.